So today I want to ask a question, and I'm going to answer the question how I think it should be answered. And I would be really interested to hear other people's point of view. And the question was actually prompted by me watching a reality TV show the other day of this couple who I follow on social media, and they've got their own program now. And the question was, is it selfish to want to keep your child with you and home educate or homeschool them? Is it better to go against your natural instinct and send them to school? And the question arose in my mind and it got me thinking about this because on the reality TV show that I was watching, the couple was sending their little boy to nursery for the first time. And the mum was really, really struggling and finding it really hard. She was really upset. She couldn't speak when they were in the car on the way to the nursery. The dad was saying that, this really feels like it goes against everything that my actual being is telling me that I should be doing, because it's my natural instinct to keep him with me and to look after him. We've always had him with us for the last 2.5 years, and it just feels really strange to be taking him and handing him over to people, and we're not going to know what he's doing. We're not going to know how he is. I'm not going to know if he's upset. And they dropped him off, and the mum couldn't speak. She was just absolutely inconsolable. She just couldn't talk. And it got me thinking that I heard something a while back now, and it said about how radical homeschooling and home education was, and how parents who homeschool or home educate were a bit out there and taking a little bit of a risk by doing it. And I think that programme that I watched the other day just kind of summed up for me how quickly we forget factual, living, actual representation of the fact that something works, and we can be brainwashed into accepting something completely different that completely goes against everything that has ever been before. And yet, even though we feel that it's wrong, we now follow it and just accept that it's right. Because when we look back 100 years plus, some of the greatest musicians, artists, inventors were homeschooled. They were home educated because a lot of them, there was no such thing as schools. They didn't have any choice. And they are, in history, they are factual living people who've achieved amazing things without going to school. We look at nature and wildlife, and we look at animals being born into the wild. So lions, for a sake of example, when a lion cub is born, they integrate into their pack and they stay with that pack, and they learn from the parents and from the adults, within that pack, how to live, how to hunt, how to protect themselves, how to survive, how to feed their young, how to rear cubs themselves. And they then go on to have their own cubs and obviously their own pack, and so the cycle continues. And that's always been the case. Yet people seem to think that homeschooling is a really radical idea. But actually, to me, protecting your children, wanting your children with you, wanting to be the one who watches them flourish and grow and follow their interests, being that person who can facilitate that and being with them on that journey and having them as part of your daily life, for me, is the most natural thing in the world. And it always sent wrong to me, which is one of the many reasons why we decided to home educate in the first place, because I genuinely couldn't envisage there ever would come a point that I could hand my children over to somebody else, to a stranger, to a system that I had absolutely no control over, and to know that once they were in that system, they were going to be moulded into fitting that system, whether that was beneficial to them or not. So do I think it's selfish for people to home educate? Absolutely not. I personally think that the reason why that reality couple were feeling how they were feeling was because it's a natural human instinct to look after your young and to raise your young. And when we have babies and we teach them, how to sit up, and we teach them how to crawl and how to walk and how to eat and how to talk, and we teach them manners and we teach them how to interact, and we teach them how to, open doors and put their shoes on, get dressed, have a wash, and all things like that. That's part of our role. That's what, as parents, we're there for. We're there to pass on our knowledge to our children. And I think it's really sad if people are entering their children into the school system purely because they have this belief that to keep them at home and to keep them with them is selfish on their behalf, because right through time immemorial, that was what used to happen. And for me, when people talk about radical, for me, what could possibly be more radical than to raise a child up to the age of 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, then hand them over to somebody and have zero control over what they're learning, zero control over how they're learning it. You have no input. You don't know how they are responding to things. You don't know that their basic needs are being met. So are they going to the toilet when they need to go to the toilet? Can they eat when they want to eat? Can they drink when they want to drink? Can they offer up suggestions or, feel free to put their own ideas forward and things like that? Well, no, they can't. Because all of those privileges are taken away from them when they enter the school system, and only basic privileges are given to them. So to me, to hand your children over to a system like that and then just get them back 14 years later, what could possibly be a more radical idea than that? So it's something I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on. I know that there's going to be people who say, well, I have to send my children to school for working purposes and different things like that, and I fully understand that. But really today, what I wanted really your feedback on is, if you didn't have to do that, like if you didn't have to, make that choice so that you could facilitate a lifestyle, do you feel that you should keep your children with you, or do people genuinely feel that the school system is the only way that children can learn nowadays? As always, please feel free to drop your thoughts and comments.